Hello. I wanted to pop on, just felt inspired to share a passage that I was reminded of from Marianne Williamson's Return to Love. And I first recorded this passage as a voice memo to share with some girlfriends who were also entrepreneurs in 2014. I'd have to remember when I first came across Return to Love, but it is definitely something. I mean, you can see how worn it is. Something I come back to a lot, especially in times like these where feel the need to recenter and just come back to what the important things are. Love, the fact that we're all connected, and how can I sort of be that example and lead by example. So this passage really struck me because of this moment. And, it's talking about our power versus powerlessness, our present versus the future, our potential versus our capacity. So I hope it resonates. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. But if it resonates, I hope it helps. Our Capacity for Brilliance from A Return to Love, written by Marianne Williamson. In the eyes of God, we're all perfect, and we have unlimited capacity to express brilliantly. I say unlimited capacity rather than unlimited potential because potential can be a dangerous concept. We can use it to tyrannize ourselves, to live in the future instead of in the present, to set ourselves up for despair by constantly measuring ourselves against what we think we could be rather than what we are. Until we're perfect masters, it is by definition impossible to live up to our potential. Our potential always remains something we're only capable of living later. Potential is a concept that can bind us to personal powerlessness. Focus on human potential remains impotent without a focus on human capacity. Capacity is expressed in the present. It is immediate. The key to it lies not in what we have inside of us, but rather in what we are willing to own that we have inside of us. There is no point in waiting until we are perfect in what we do, or enlightened masters, or PhDs in life, before opening ourselves to what we're capable of doing now. Of course, we're not as good today as we'll be tomorrow, but how will we ever get to tomorrow's promise without making some sort of move today? I remember spending years of my life, this is Marianne, so upset about the life choices I felt I had available that I never moved. I was paralyzed by all the possibilities, although it could have been me at some point, could have been you at some point. I couldn't figure out which road would lead me to the fulfillment of my potential. This glorious neurotic myth that lay always just in front of anything I could manifest now. So I was always too scared to move. And fear, of course, is the great betrayer of self. The difference between those people living their potential and those who don't is not the amount of potential itself, but the amount of permission they give themselves to live in the present. We are the adult generation. We have adult bodies, adult responsibilities, and adult careers. What many of us lack in adult context for our lives, one in which we give ourselves permission to shine, to blossom fully, to show up powerfully in the present without fearing that we're not good enough. Waiting for a powerful future is a way of making sure it never gets here. An adolescent dreams of what will be. An adult takes joy in today. I once had a therapist who told me that my problem was that I wanted to move directly from point A to point X, Y, and Z. She pointed out that I seemed incapable of moving from point A to point B, of putting one foot in front of the other. It's much easier to dream about point Z than to actually move to point B. It's easier to practice our Oscar acceptance speech than to get up and go to acting class. We're often afraid to do anything unless we know we can do it extremely well. But we get to Carnegie as I learned, Hall by practicing. I remember how freeing it was several years ago to read in an interview with Joan Baez that some of Bob Dylan's early songs weren't so wonderful. We have this image of genius springing fully out of Zeus's forehead. I once asked someone to lecture for me while I was out of town, and he answered that he felt he couldn't lecture as well as I. Of course you can't, I said. I've been doing it for years, but how will you ever get great at it unless you start doing it? I think the reason people don't have hobbies today is as much as they did in past generations, is because they can't bear to do anything we're not fabulous at, or we can't bear to do anything we're not fabulous at. Apparently that needed to be repeated. Several years ago, I started taking piano lessons again, after having played for many years as a child. Chopin, I am not, but there was so much therapeutic value in just playing. I saw very clearly that you don't have to be a virtuoso at everything you do in order to be a virtuoso at life. Virtuosity in life means singing out, not necessarily singing well. Most of us feel on some level like racehorses champing at the bit, pressing at the gate, hoping and praying for someone to open the door and let us run out. We feel so much pent-up energy, so much locked-up talent. We know in our hearts that we were born to do great things, and we have a deep-seated dread of wasting our lives. But the only person who can free us is ourselves. Most of us know that. We realize that the locked door is our own fear. But we have learned by now that on some level, our terror of moving forward is so great that it would take a miracle to free us. The ego would have us born with great potential and die with great potential. In between, there is ever increasing suffering. A miracle frees us to live fully in the present, to release our power and to claim our glory. The Son of God is risen to heaven when he releases the past, releases the future, and thus releases himself to be who he is today. Hell is what the ego makes of the present. Heaven is another take on the altogether. So if you listened all the way through, I know that's a long one. It just feels incomplete if you only do a part of it. I hope that helps. I hope, it really truly is one foot in front of the other. And I can tell you it can be a cha-cha sometimes too. You take a step back so you can take 1 or 2 or 3 steps forward. But I think about potential a lot, and having that come up again as far as it's more about our capacity and just continuing to give ourselves the space and the grace to evolve into our possibilities. Because I don't know, once our potential realized, isn't that perhaps the end? So maybe it should just be about what's possible. I'll leave you with that today, and sending you lots of love.